It's 6:31. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Right now, I'm only aware of two members that are going to be absent, in Bill Hull and Christine Stasio. I do have Sheila Hayes and Stacy Gould online. I've got Greg, Peter, Mark, Kulos, and myself here. So we do have a quorum present, so I'm gonna open the meeting. And anyone else that comes in will announce.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
It's the mayor.
I know.
Okay, thank
I
you.
didn't forget.
Yeah.
So, the approval of minutes from the previous meeting, November 19th, 2024. Can I get a motion to approve? We all should have those.
So moved.
So moved by Peter. Second by Markulos. Any additions, corrections, or deletions to the minutes? Peter provided some. Good enough. Anybody else? Hearing none, I'll note that this meeting is being recorded. It's a hybrid meeting. We're here both in room 335 at City Hall and online on Zoom, and therefore we will conduct votes by roll call. So we'll do the online on the minutes. Stacy?
Yes.
Sheila?
Yes.
Greg Velocity?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Greg? Abstain. Abstain, that's right, you weren't here. Myself, yes. Motion passes. Is there anyone here for public comment? Is there anyone here for public comment? Is there anyone here for public comment? Seeing none, we will move on. Report from CSG.
Yes. All right, for the standing project, state payment request number 5 has been submitted. I logged in today. We're still awaiting approval and then payment. And once we get the approval and payment, we'll begin the next payment request. First PCR meeting for the Stanton project has been completed. At this time, we're waiting feedback from OGA for scheduling the next meeting. The meetings generally went really well. The state typically has a lot of questions for us regarding specific project details, estimate information. There's about a 90-item checklist that we have to go through with the state reviewer. So we got through probably about items 70 or 80 on the list for the Stanton project. And then we'll have a follow-up meeting where we'll bring any corrections that were necessary from the first meeting, and then we review the new items at the subsequent meeting. A site logistics meeting has been scheduled with district administration and Stanton staff to review the site logistics during construction. That's going to be this Thursday at, I'd have to check my calendar. I think it's earlier in the day.
It's 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Thank you, Tim. We're currently working with the state to have our follow-up meeting with OGA for the PCR review. The next state payment request number 6 will be submitted following the payment of request 5. So they notify us, then they notify us of an approval, then the money hits the city's account. And the day the money hits the city's account, we can then submit the next payment request. And that's the scenario that we've been on, or the schedule that we've been on. Attention points to logistics of the opening of the building have not yet been determined. As the project progresses, the distribution of students and logistics of the moves to the new buildings need to be analyzed to understand who will be moving to the new building and from where. That's just a general note until we get the redistricting completed.
1 second. Cindy's coming in. Kevin. Okay. Good, sir.
A proposal has been submitted to complete the redistricting for the district from MP Planning Group. That's been distributed to the Board of Education as well as Mark, and it's included in the package. We can review that at the end of this update if anyone has any questions regarding that. Moving on to the monthly project update for the budget for Stanton. To date, we've spent $2,555,600.38. The monthly project update for Greenville is basically the same, except the only difference is that we've had the PCR meeting and a follow-up meeting, so we were able to have 2 meetings on the Greenville project. The initial meeting happened on the 2nd, and then the state had some time 2 days later for us to go back. We provided them some of the information that needed corrections, and then, towards the end of the meeting, we went more through the drawings. The process has complicated a bit because typically on these projects, you used to go through 3 review meetings, and every one of the review meetings built up to the next review meeting. So of the checklist items that are required in the later review meetings are included in the early checklist. So by not having those early meetings, the early documents never get reviewed. So we essentially just go to the state fresh with everything and then have to review everything in total and at the plan completion review.
No specific concerns?
What's that?
No specific concerns?
No, I mean, they're all, they touched a lot on the quantity of radon pits and running coordination checks to make sure piping was coordinated through the building. There's specific statutory requirements that these projects are governed by, like overhead and profit percentage that contractors can get, daily cleanup provisions, small tool provisions, and the state wants to make sure that the information that's within the documents that we're sending out to bid are in alignment with their requirements so that there's not a big problem once the actual construction goes. Very, very typical of a PCR review. If anything, I would say that the documents and stuff that we had was more complete than usual. So, it was all semantical type stuff, like on one of the forms, because I'm generating, upwards of 25, 30 letters. When I drafted one and then went to the next one, the project number didn't change, but the project name changed. So we had to do a quick update on stuff like that. We reviewed all Downs estimate information. We reviewed all DRA's design information. In certain cases at Greenville, they mentioned, hey, you may need a handrail here. So, in contrast to previous meetings that I think I've had with them, they appeared to have drummed down a little bit in more detail on the actual drawings than we're used to. In one case, they asked for, light readings across the site, photometric data, just to see how lit the site was going to be. I've never had them ask for that. But it just that type of stuff. There were no showstoppers as part of the project. Estimate data was, a couple tweaks to that, and then just how they want to see the information. It wasn't that there was anything that was so bad that they were going to stop the project or potentially not let us continue. Same attention points on Greenville as Stanton, the proposals at the end of the project. Moving on to the project budget update over at Greenville, we've expended $2,532,919.07. The next project on the list is the Moriarty School. Working group meetings have been completed over the past few months with district administration and school staff. All revised grant information required by the state has been submitted. We received communications from the state that these projects will be added to the upcoming priority list. The priority list was released 2 days ago, and our projects are in the priority list. So we should be seeing a grant application approval sometime in
Early June.
Yeah, early June.
Ended the legislative session.
Upcoming events, working group meetings will continue for the project. A draft of the CM RFP that should say completed. At this time, our plan is to post the RFP just after the first of the year. With the holidays, if we were to post an RFP and now after this meeting, no one's really going to look at it. And then, by going out, I think I sent a tentative schedule over to Bob Castronova today for his review. I think it releases on, I can pull the dates if anyone's ultimately.
Yeah, why don't we do, because we'll hold it. We're going to talk about that at the end of the
Okay,
meeting.
all right.
It's on the agenda for the meeting.
All right.
We'll talk about that then.
Same notes for attention points with regards to the Moriarty project, and allowance usage is attached to the packet after this update. That was in the amount, it's for us in the amount of $1,293.75 for the work required to update the demographic report. So basically the state reviewed our grant applications in October. They sent us some feedback back, which we were corresponding with them back and forth. It had to do with enrollment data. If everyone remembers, the budgets had changed from, we had to go in with the higher budget last June at the end of the priority list cycle because we didn't have new information. So we submitted those grant applications with the higher amount. Obviously, the budgets changed when the demographic information was re-benchmarked. So, you know, as we did the budget update, the values of the project had changed. The state asked us for a new project funding authorization letter stating what the values of each project were going to be. And at that point, we had to fill them in as to what had happened. You know, in coordination with Josh Copier, the city comptroller, we responded to that letter, you know, with the new amounts and everything. And as a result of that, the state had additional questions, forms that needed to be updated, and they required us to update the demographic enrollment report to be on a school by school basis. So basically we had to show the projected student enrollment at the new Greenville school, the new Stanton school, and then the new Uncas and Moriarty school. And in order to get the information in a way that the state would accept it, we were required to update the demographic report to show a school by school enrollment. While the committee understands what's going on, I think there may have been a little bit of a disconnect with the state as to what was going on. And I don't know that they necessarily understood that, you know, at the end of this project, we're going from 7 to 4 elementary schools. So having school by school demographic information doesn't really apply in this case, but ultimately the statutes govern their approval or rejection of the grant applications. So, you know, statutorily, it says that every grant application needs to have demographic information for that individual school rather than total district enrollment.
So the cost, the
Yeah.
1293, that was just Moriarty's portion of the total bill.
It was both projects total portion. It was $1,293.75 for both projects.
All right.
And the reason that they aren't broken out in that fashion is because if you remember when we bid on the owner's representative services for Stanton, Greenville, and Moriarty, there was additional scope that we had determined wasn't going to get used. So the dollar value for the additional scope that wasn't going to get used was converted into an allowance so that we can pay for miscellaneous things for the projects. There on
Some of the
Uncas,
photography stuff,
Yeah.
and whatever.
Right,
they use.
so that allowance. Went to the Moriarty
Correct.
budget.
right. Or,
Okay.
well, it's held within CSG's contract. It's $115,000. Basically, we're using it as needed with your approval. And then at the end of the project, if there's any balance left, it just won't be billed out, and then we'll reconcile the paperwork.
Right, but each construction project, each school has
Except-
their own budget.
Except for Uncas,
Uncas.
because there
Oh,
was no,
It wasn't required.
those, yeah, those services were not included within the RFP.
Right.
Okay, so that's why this amount was allocated to.
Correct.
Yeah,
Moriarty.
correct. Yes.
Okay,
Yep. And the allowance usage is after this project in the packet. The update for Uncas is going to be exactly the same. You know, and we'll go into the draft CMRP when we get to that section of the packet. And that's the end of our update.
Any questions for CSG from the committee? Here and none. DRA. And we bring your thing up there. Come on. Machine.
Oh, I just said the Uncas update, the same as Moriarty. They're following a similar track, so basically the information is exactly the same. In the event that there's any different information, I think moving forward, I'll just highlight the information that may be additional. If it's on one of the two projects rather than just, boring you guys with the same information that provided for the previous one.
All right. Gary,
So on Stanton and Greenville, Mike provided the update on the ODA review. And I agree with Mike, it went, I think it went quite well. And the stuff that was, that was picked up was more or less, bookkeeping. A lot of documents, a lot of dates, a lot of project numbers that all need to just shift from document to document. But quite an effort by Frank's team and Mike's and ours to get everything moving and get it turned around. So we bugged the state reviewer yesterday again to see when we might be able to get back in there, because this will start to crunch down on Frank's schedule for getting out the bid. We knew it was always going to be kind of funky going through the holidays with it. And we'll see what we get back as a reply, but they don't expect we'll get an awful lot of comments and be able to get that straightened out pretty quickly. Behind us are boards that Stanton administration had requested to put up in all. And so we took some of the image that we've been showing the committee all along, and printed out and attached them to the board, and deliver them to Mike, who's gonna take them over to the school, and they'll put them out in the public and say them.
good.
And that will let
Excellent.
people know what to expect, site plan, floor plan, and 3 interior images. And as we go along, if there's a place and a desire for the same from Greenville, just let us know and get the board's done. And
Yeah, I can't, I don't see.
I kind of discussed that with Susan, I don't know where we.
Yeah,
maybe
and let's get one.
Central office, but no one really goes there,
Yeah,
so.
typically, projects that are going from Newry, put them in City Hall or Central Office. If there's not enough foot traffic, it's.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, McKelly.
Yeah, if you've got a need for them, let us know, and we're gonna put up, it's a good way to generate some interest and keep people current.
Yep.
Where the projects stand.
You get that, Susan?
Listening.
Okay, just making sure.
I got it.
Those images have also, or are in the process of being posted on the Board of Education website as well, so. If people don't end up seeing them.
It's already on it. It's already
Oh.
uploaded.
I'm falling behind in the technology world. Priority list got released 2 days ago and I didn't know, and not surprised by this either.
Yeah, I think they convey a good image of what the town can anticipate. And other than that, working through coordination between Frank's team and ours, like to a lesser degree, because it's kind of coordinating all the documents. There's a 2,000 something pages of spec and 200 or 300 pages of drawings, and we plan to deliver a review set for internal review only to Frank's team by the end of the week or Monday, one of those two, which will let us get going on all the things that contractors are going to be looking at when they look at them, and start to generate them. Take this time while we wait for the state to steal a mark on contractors. So yeah, on those 2 schools, just kind of moving along in the background.
Good.
Next one there, and we could go right into it. We're looking at the timeline that we've been using with the working group for the Uncas and Moriarty projects. We've been using, well, we have it listed as we're using month of December, but we used part of October, November, December to develop schematic designs. Our goal is January 1st to really focus on producing a schematic design set. By end of January, we'd have that available for pricing. So that's your first budget estimate for pricing of the schematic design set. Here in December, surveys underway, the wetland extent consideration is being confirmed and finalized, and traffic study is just getting up and running. So we're collecting all the background information for both sites in this time frame. you go to the next slide, this slide kind of shows for both Uncas and Moriarty the general kind of families of options. We had the Phoenix, the Hillside Step, the Bridge at Moriarty, Maximize, Linear Bar, Compact, and T. And over the course of the last month, and Susan and administration has done a really good job of getting a team together to review things on a weekly basis. So we've had a good conversation, and it's been an iterative process that has kind of brought us to recommending for Uncas this location, which is the hillside location, and at Moriarty, the location, which is to the back quadrant of the site. And I'll show you some other diagrams as we go into the next steps. So this is Uncas options. First, this is kind of a sampling of kind of things that we've heard from the working group as they respond to drawings and take a look at things. Questions about roadways. Are the roadways going to be appropriately sized within the site? Special education adjacencies, specifically looking at the drawings and helping us understand what do the user groups want to see. Our question to them, what we need to know, again, adjacencies, making sure we're getting them right, and site preferences if there are any. If you move to the next slide. So we looked at the Phoenix option, the Hillside Step, and the Bridge. We looked at it across a number of kind of considerations or criteria, and then we kind of score rated them. Now, we did this simply as one tool. You don't want to look at it and say, well, that's why we're doing what we're doing. It helps us think about a lot of different issues, have a conversation with people, and be able to talk it through. But as I said, we are starting to lean towards Hillside Step, which means the existing building stays in that location. We're kind of cheek to jowl with it at that point, and we've improved on that, so it's less tightness there. But that's the thought of trying to build while occupied within the site. If you move to the next slide. This is a diagram of the building. We'll get it in for the next meeting, but the footprint of the existing building is kind of underlaid under the parking layout, but it is kind of right there. This, for the site considerations, we're utilizing similar quantities as we have at Greenville and Stanton. 130 to 140 parking spaces, 17 buses, 3 shorter buses parked, grass play areas, upper and lower playgrounds.
3-story classroom?
Well, I'll get to that in a moment. That's a great question, because to try to make this as small as we could, one thing that we consider, we had a 2-story option, and we explored that with the working group. But by going to 3, we can tighten it down even further. And there are some significant advantages that came out of that, not the least of which is at this upper tier, we end up with the cafeteria in this zone. And with the cafeteria in this zone, we could get direct access to a playscape, hard surface, and field area. When we had kind of a 2-story with an additional classroom wing up here, that got bifurcated. You ended up with the playscape up here and this back here, and it wasn't a happy solution. So people responded to this very positively. In terms of site circulation, again, we're getting bus loop and bus drop-off in one area, a segregated parent drop-off area. So again, from a site circulation standpoint, getting to that kind of goal of separation of circulation. Go to the next slide. These are the floor plans that support that. So at the first floor plan, main entrance, gymnasium, music band in support, classroom wing out here. As you come up to the second floor, 3rd grade, 1st grade, 2nd grade. And you might say, Jim and Greg, why don't you put them in order, 1st, 2nd, 3rd? Grade 1 has to occupy this zone because when they're on a second floor level, there has to be a direct means of egress to grade. And by positioning them there, we're within the linear limits of that. So we're still testing this and moving it forward, but that's the logic of why we have the grade 1 there.
So
And
it's
then,
pretty much a state requirement that they.
yes, sir.
you know,
Yep. And then if you come up to the third level, it's only this portion and it's grades 4 and 5 on that upper level. Staff seem to really like the organization of this. And we're coming back to another meeting on Wednesday with them. So if we go to the next slide, this same floor plan, you can see it kind of in a exploded kind of axonometric, but there's administration and entry, gym, kindergarten wing, as I said, third grade, first grade, second grade clusters, that dining area. This is that direct access to the exterior playscapes. And then up on the third level, only over this wing, is grades 4 and 5. This still does a very nice thing of being able to have kind of public use of spaces and being able to close off academic wings. So another concept that we've tried to hold to. If you go to the next slide.
What do
Yes,
kids
sir.
pre-K have to do to get to the cafeteria?
They, and in many schools, pre-K, don't make their way up to the cafeteria. We do here. And they do have to head up the stairs. So, excuse me. Yes, they do have to head up to the third floor level. So that is a consideration in terms of movement in the building. But in terms of availability of space, trying to get the kitchen down to the lower level becomes a real kind of constraint. So it is something that we'll explore, and I'll bring that up with the working group on Thursday to have conversation around that so people will know that's the ask and that's the consideration in this kind of organization. This is just showing kind of a sectional cut through it. And if you go to the next slide, you'll actually get that cut. So this is that grade stack. And I'm sorry, they don't have to go up 3 floors. This will sound better. They have to go up 1 set of, thank you. Wow.
Talking yourself out of it there,
I
Jim.
was.
Well, if they're on the third floor, they only got to go 2 floors.
Well, they're here
I know.
and they have to get here. You're right. My numbers were off all around. This is also demonstrating that
2 places.
requirement of connection. And again, we're working through to confirm that linear length, but we think we're within the constraints. And if you go to the next slide, we'll move to Moriarty, same type of information, what we've heard, what we feel we need to know. And as I said, this has been a good team of people to work with in the working group meetings. Next slide, same type of analysis across 4 different approaches. To be honest, initially, we thought what's over there to the left, it's listed as max site use, would have been our preference coming out of the gate. As we discussed it with the users, they were very concerned about having children that close to the 2 roadways. Although we regularly demonstrated to them, as you leave the building, you're going to the most protected side of the site. But still, that proximity to roadway was something that really was a concern. So we began to explore other positions. It's the compact scheme that we're going to show you in the next few slides. And you can see it'll kind of morph from this into another configuration. If you hit that, this is the site plan. So this is the Turnpike, this is Lawler. Our idea is to have the building across, God,
The far right.
we need to get our north arrows on this. But at any rate, we're getting it to the back of the site. Something that are,
Change the orientation of the ball field?
well,
Is that the-
that's
is that-
a consideration here. This is our landscape architect saying,
Okay.
the ball field that exists there is not oriented as you would want it for a baseball use.
Well, it's a
But
90-foot, it's a 90-foot infield with 300 since I played there.
No, I understand, but it's the view into the sun that's the problem with the
Yeah,
current.
The
And-
way it's drawn up, Mark, it would play northeast. which
Yeah,
is the-
no, I'm fully aware, haven't played there back in the, like I said, in the dark ages.
Was there sunlight?
Yeah, we were playing by candles, I think, we had candles.
So that kind of consideration, you know, many people will say that's a fine field the way it is. We could augment it and make it look good and keep it going and not spend money on it. This is something that in schematic design, we could have our cost estimator quickly tell us what's the cost of kind of reworking it to get it corrected if they want to. And that's, again, these are all just tools for you to make decisions going forward.
Well, let's show it, you basically turn it there into a little league field versus right now, that's a 90-foot diamond,
Okay,
just so you know. So, and it's used in like, older leagues and stuff like that.
okay. Well, for that reason, we may not want to mess with it. That's great information
And then
to have
where,
on.
since I parked my car there, where will the balls go? If we keep the orientation,
The balls?
yeah, they'll go towards the parking. lot.
No, they'll go towards the buses.
Oh, okay.
No problem. No problem.
Yeah, but if the regular orientation, the way it is now, you're 300 to 350. Yeah, not too many kids, not too many people that hit there or play there are hitting it that far. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Wasn't George Springer from Connecticut?
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
One of our
We have a few.
landscape
I
art,
know where I'm gonna park.
one of your designated spot.
Right.
Right out there.
Well, you're next to the electrical charge.
Yeah.
Our landscape architect, as we were developing this, helped us get this kind of protected zone. And again, cafeteria in this location, playscape, paved area, grass play area, kind of all tucked together. So, and we do know that this is a wet zone of the site, so we'll have to consider that as we think about the field deployment. Next slide.
How far is the road?
This road?
No, the other one that wants.
Canterbury.
It's Canterbury.
Areas, no, down here in the bottom.
No, this is Canterbury
I
here.
know it. On the other side of the site.
There is no road.
That's the old Nentic farm.
Okay,
It's
so there's
very
no road.
far.
Yeah.
no road.
It's-
There's no road there.
That's the farthest corner.
Yeah,
That's the connection.
yeah, that's
to
where,
the-
where it
There's a
borders
city
on the
park
park.
Right.
through
It
that
borders on the
corner.
park there.
You've got another 300 feet or so, the old Nentic farm, the remaining.
I can't think of it.
So you can see the outline of the school now
Well, it's.
and the,
Old can.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
so there runs,
Yep.
and
That's
there's, and
Canterbury.
that's probably in, on the, what was to the lower right, that's a private property right now that you may want to consider picking up at some point, but that's,
Not this committee.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the old
City.
Nentic farm.
yeah.
So if
None took.
we can hit the next slide and it'll show the organization of the building. Again, we think a pretty good relationship of spaces, classroom zones, library at a pro, administration in this zone with entry, gym, dining, kitchen kind of in this zone. And as we showed in the site with direct access to those play areas. Upper portion is really just third, fourth, fifth grade educational use at the second floor level. And if you go to the next slide, this gives you that same kind of exploded view where you can see the entry with administration, gym, dining. Good chance to shut down the building at this zone and at this zone for after hours weekend use. The next slide.
That interior courtyard, that I assume that's
Can you move
open,
back?
and is that accessible from this?
The interior courtyard, open to air,
Right.
but enclosed on four sides.
So it's not accessible from,
No,
so you couldn't have like a butterfly garden or a garden or something in there
You
for
can't.
for the kids?
you can, but it's only accessible from the building itself.
Well, that's what I mean, from
Yes.
the building itself, yeah.
Yep. Yep, that's possibility. And that's one of the questions in the listing at the outset of what are the possibilities of outdoor space? And so we'll bring that forward as we go through design development and.
I'm thinking, to incorporate it as a teaching space.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, nope, that's excellent. The next slide, that's it. So, that is kind of an update of where we've been and where we're heading. And as I said, we'll have another meeting this Thursday with the working group. Our goal in January is to, to a certain degree, put our heads down and really try to get documents put together. So at the end of the month, we can have another cost milestone for the committee's use.
Joy. All right, any questions for DR?
Looks nice.
We good? Everybody? All right.
Of some similar nature, I understand, not won't be centered in the school. I'm sorry, the courtyard you show on this.
Yes,
For Moriarty,
right.
do we have similar type spaces?
We do not have court spaces at Greenville or at Stanton. It's really site driven in many kind of ways of thinking about it. And to organize the building at the back of the site, we also have a T-scheme that can do some work back there. So that's another consideration is to move away from the courtyard.
I'm just thinking in terms of you're gonna have the potentially.
Yep.
Have this space. And have we embedded similar spaces in Stanton?
We haven't had exactly the same type of space. Do have good potential around the buildings for outdoor working. Nothing formalized.
Just on different.
That's all.
Well, Greenville itself is a tough space because you've got whatever you put in the center of the building is gonna be on a crazy slope anyways.
They got that great bridge for the geological study. So they don't have that in Moriarty. Study there.
When we get to other things, let's talk about the young. The demographic.
Yeah.
Figure that out. Balance.
Yeah.
Showtime.
Sure, thanks, Mark. So I have a lot of the same comments. I don't want to sound too repetitive. But as far as work complete from our point of view, when it comes to pre-construction, we have fully developed the set aside plans and we've been in touch with the CHRO compliance office in Hartford. We have their approval for the set aside plans for both Stanton and Greenville. And I did attach an example of what that set aside plan looks like, if you want to just go to the next slide. Yeah, so, yep, so we've got 28 bid packages that we've carved out for this project for Stanton. I believe on Greenville, we have 29 packages, and between the small business packages and the non-small business packages, it's almost an even split right down the middle between those packages. So we've got to fulfill that 25%, set aside goal for small business enterprise, and that's essentially what this report is illustrating. Right now we're at 27% based on the packages that we've carved out. And this is pretty typical. There isn't anything that is really like some kind of strange package that is out there. This is typical in the bid market of what bidders are expecting to see. And with these packages that we carved out, we do expect to have some very decent bid competition. At least 3 bids for the set aside packages, if not more.
Good to hear.
Go back to the
First one.
beginning. The temp utilities, as Mike mentioned, so we've got a meeting coming up on Thursday. That's more to work closely with the school, just kind of lay out the details of
All
the
right.
logistics.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second regarding utilities?
Yeah.
So I had a talk with Corporation Council today. So as you know, we had the sewer issues in the schools. So originally the talk was we were going to create enterprise zones for the schools. But what's going to happen is we're going to do a rough equivalent by basically they're going to change the utilities commissioners are gonna carve out an exception for the for sewer for school projects and stuff, basically. So it'll be 50 cents on the dollar, essentially, you know. So where we're, you know,
Yeah.
so we'll be getting what we anticipated, you know, before. So there won't be a negative impact. I just wanted to let the committee know that I did have that conversation today. I anticipate that will all be implemented within the next couple of months. So when we go to break ground and all that, we'll be able to revise cost estimates regarding the sewer. I know we're all set for Greenville because that's part of the enterprise zone anyway, but Stanton isn't. So that, and the other two schools are not. So those will help those schools and teachers down the road. So. All right, I just wanted to bring that up. It just happened this afternoon.
So were they able to use the existing sewer connections?
I have no idea. That's out above my pay grade. So I doubt Stanton's gonna be a whole different kettle of fish. They're gonna have to run some, it's all gonna be all new because you're gonna be carrying a lot more effluent, you know, to Stanton.
And the current system.
Yeah, it's not gonna, it's barely, yeah, the current system isn't working that great for that site, you know, so. All right, go.
All right, so
Sorry.
going back to the agenda, that's okay. So temporary utilities, so we did end up meeting with the public utility company a couple weeks ago. We met both projects. Good news, we have plans to tap into existing utilities that are there. And we will update our logistics plans accordingly for gas, power, and water. We're working with Rob Harris and his team.
Yeah, I think he's here online.
Yep. The PCR checklist, you guys heard a bunch about that. I don't want to beat that up too much. I don't want to say that we're in a holding pattern, you know, by no means. We are working behind the scenes to finalize bid packages that we intend to go out to bid with. And DRA is, you know, helping us. They mentioned that internal use only set that'll help us. For example, we have to tie every spec section to every bid package that we're going to put out to bid. So that just that effort alone is very time consuming, as you can imagine. You got to hit every package with all of the spec sections. So combing over those hundreds of pages of documents. So we have a lot of that already mapped out. It's just a matter of taking the documents that we're getting and just plugging in new dates for the spec sections at this point. What else? So PCR checklist, you know, one of the documents, just to give you a sample of what the state looks for, I attached a legal notice. Mark, if you could just scroll over to that. So that is a legal notice that will, you know, between the both jobs, they will be identical in terms of the information. The dates may change a little bit. I won't go through all of this.
Yeah, change Norwalk to Norwich.
What's that?
You guys, first paragraph says Norwalk.
Okay. That never fails me. I will update that along with the dates. So as we get closer to finalizing, you know, once we get an okay from the state that we're going to go out to bid, we can tweak all these dates, do it once over on this.
It's bad when I catch you on stuff.
Yeah. All of the questions that will come through will filter through Downs. We will have dedicated emails set up for that. I know depending on the town, the purchasing department may want to also see the RFIs come in. So that's something we can talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as the bids, I talked to Mike a little bit before this meeting. If you notice, I think it's number 3. Where we talk about bids being delivered to City Hall. I understand they may accept electronic.
Yeah, we just gotta, all this purchasing stuff will have to be vetted with Bob Castro.
Yeah.
So when we get closer, you know, we'll work with him to get his requirements and put in here.
Right, so we'll work through that. And then the next page of this legal notice, if you could just scroll over, Mark. The next page. So typically we take care of the advertising, reaching out to the local papers, the posting of the BizNet website. You know, typically in the past, my experience is the purchasing department will help us with that. We also reach out to the Minority Construction Council because they're an important component when it comes to you know, getting in touch with the set aside bidders for the project, so got all those parties identified there. So if we go back to the agenda. Sorry to keep flipping back and forth.
Oh, it's all right.
So final scopes of work for bidding. So like I said, that's kind of where we sit right now, working through that effort between all the packages, getting that ready. Once we meet with faculty planned for Thursday, we're going to present the logistics plans as we have developed them right now. There aren't really a whole ton of options we can really come up with for Stanton because it is such a tight site, but I feel like the logistics plan that we've come up with is a plan where, we can coexist as best as possible and not create too much of a disruption. So
Have we resolved the parking issue?
So the parking issue on Stanton, I know we had shown,
I mean, I know there's a
potential
chance we could work with the
parking at the
synagogue.
Yeah, I've been working
Right.
with the board of directors at the synagogue to
Okay.
try and, we'll have future meetings with them, but in
Yeah.
principle, the synagogue has offered us parking, so it'll just be fine tuning the dates that we can and can't use it, the hours that we can and can't use it,
Okay,
getting down to document the condition of the parking lot before we start, so that if it gets damaged, it gets repaired, and then
yeah.
any type of cleaning provisions that may be necessary, maybe sweep it once a month or something, just to ensure that we're being a good neighbor.
Mike,
Right.
can I add something, please? This is Susan Lazard.
Go ahead.
So I like that you said that we'll have to make do with whatever we can do with the existing Stanton building. My concern is because I've heard that there's been talk of vacating that side of the school where the kindergarten wing is. And there's absolutely no room in the school. I just want to let everybody know that we don't even have a library. It's now a classroom in there. So is there talk of still wanting to vacate that area?
The portable classrooms would be great, Susan, from a logistics standpoint, just because, construction traffic is going to be right next to those portable classrooms. While we probably can make it work, if there was a way to vacate those two portable classrooms closest to the playground, it would certainly simplify the site logistics for us and allow the construction manager to have their field office closer to the construction, which is something, we always look for because basically the supervision hub for the project. But the plans that we'll be presenting tomorrow don't have any of that incorporated. I think it'll, it was going to be a discussion item, but, I kind of already know the answer as to where that's going to go. But if through some change of something, we were able to, vacate those two portable classrooms, it would be beneficial to the project.
Mike, what portable classrooms are you talking about? You talking about the ones that are where we keep the team, or are you talking about the two kindergarten classrooms?
The two kindergarten portables. But they're
I don't-
not.
I don't
kindergarten.
consider those portables. That's why I'm confused.
So there's-
Modulars?
Okay, modular classrooms.
The
It's a-
modular classroom is the team classroom, is a team area.
Oh. Well, there's, if
The
you're
end of the
facing,
building,
if you're
right?
facing the school, if you look to the left, there's two modular classrooms all the way to the left of the school.
Oh,
And then
you're
if you
talking to the left, or you're talking to the right when you're looking at the school?
Right,
To
the
the right.
ones to the right are the ones that would help us the most.
Right. So let me just be clear. So if you're talking about the port, then that is the portable, and that's where we have team classrooms. So I guess and then there's another considered portable where we keep UCFS and some.
Right. Those are the two that I'm referencing.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah,
But-
it's not
yeah.
the end of the world if
Yeah.
we have to move our office closer to the turnpike.
Yeah.
That's always an option.
Okay, yeah, because definitely we don't have space for that. I mean, the only thing I can think of, Mike, and we can talk about it when we meet on Thursday, is the art room. But that would be a lot of work. But let's discuss on Thursday when we all meet.
Okay, that sounds good. The plans incorporate us not moving them, but obviously there is a benefit if we were able to, but I don't want to, belabor this to death.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Okay, so work to start number 3, so yeah, we're gearing up to go out to bid. We are anticipating January soliciting bid documents, provided we can, get a meeting pretty quickly after the new year with Bob Selmer. And then other milestones, again, just the PCR approval is the biggest thing right now. That's really our last checkpoint, right, to get out to bid. And then the permitting process. I know the permitting process is already underway with DEEP. I don't anticipate that to be a disruption for us in terms of, getting the project started, because it sounds like the approval is going to come.
Yeah, we got feedback from Deep that it would be late December or early January from
So that's,
DRA's consultant, which should be well in advance of
and
construction.
then we'll work with DRA on getting permit sets.
Yep.
So that doesn't become a issue either. That's all I have. Any questions, concerns?
Always have concerns, but don't worry about it for now.
So Mark, if we keep the city of Norwich designated, do they have to pay for it or?
You wouldn't want them to pay for it, it would cost you more, you get better
Oh,
reimbursement.
yeah. That was good.
They changed.
Yeah,
They changed it for the-
They got this neat little function called search and replace.
Yeah.
Find and replace. That's it. Find and replace. I use it all the time. Jeez. All right.
Mark, if I could, 2 questions. One,
Sure,
on
go ahead.
Boswell Avenue with the excess resolution there, coming,
What resolution do you?
putting, put the light in.
There's some behind the scenes discussion still going on. The submission was made to the Office of State Traffic Authority and or administration or whatever it is, the acronym OSTA. We're still looking at that right now. There are provisions in the drawings for it, so before we go out to bid or we get finalized the bids, it'll be ironed out.
The pipeline concerned with the drain line coming out of Stanton, is that you was gonna run, is that been inspected in the resolution?
The problem that we ran into with that is that in order to try and get a company down here to try and clean the line prior to being able to camera it, it turned into basically a disaster. Everyone that was recommended to me to try and use, I called, I ended up getting one proposal to clean the thing, and it was kind of, I think they wanted almost $10,000 to clean the line just so that we could get a camera into the line, so we're talking behind the scenes about potentially having a unit price or something for the replacement of that. If I'm able to get someone on board to get it cleaned, we still have time within the bid window where if we do get it scoped and inspected, the scope could potentially get added through an addendum to the bid drawings, but I'm really questioning the value of actually doing it, because by the time we actually start removing it, it may not have as much value as initially thought, but I'm still hopeful that I might be able to get something done with that.
And there was another concern about, I shouldn't call it concern about having enough support from building inspectors about getting them.
Right, so we ended up hiring an independent code reviewer that took a look at all the drawings from a building code standpoint. That was approved by this committee a few months back. The code reviewer that we had did a pretty good job, in my opinion, not having used these type of services very frequently, but it was the independent code reviewer that the building department wanted, so they accepted their report, signed off on the drawings. When we get a little closer to construction, I had a conversation when I got all the drawings signed with the building department regarding whether or not they would do their own inspections. It seems like they may, sorry, this is a long-winded response. It seems like they may end up being able to help us with most of them, and whatever they can't pick up, I'll purchase through an independent materials testing company. But again, I'll refine that with them when a little closer to when we go out for the materials testing solicitation, probably January, early February for that. It's all unit price based, so it really isn't a big deal to get those companies on board.
Anything else? Any other questions? All right, hearing none. Consent agenda. Pay the money. They have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Peter. You have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marculos. All right, all in favor? Let's see, Cindy.
Aye. Yes.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yes.
Stacy, are you still here?
Mm,
I don't see her.
No.
No.
She wasn't.
I got Sheila.
Oh,
You responded.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I just don't see Stacy anymore. Greg,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
me, yes. Unanimous of those present voting. Okay, I don't have my page 2 on the agenda, but as I recall, since I wrote it, we're just gonna discuss the timeline for the CM RFP.
One second. The solicitation is basically completed. I have a few touch-ups to do to it, just final edits. The solicitation was bolstered quite a bit just to ensure that we got a very robust package with regards to pre-construction on this. Give me 1 second. So I sent over a tentative or a preliminary schedule over to Bob Castronova today. I hadn't gotten any feedback yet, but I hope that the schedule will work for the purchasing department. Tentatively right now, we are looking at issuing the RFP the 3rd of January. Doing a non-mandatory walkthrough at 3:45 PM on January 9th. Again, I'll confirm that with the Board of Education to ensure that that works with the dismissal time so that we don't have a conflict there. Questions will be due on the 16th. We would then issue a addendum if there are questions to the solicitation the week after, and then the RFQP responses would be due on January 30th at the end of the month. Basically, the submissions would get unlocked at 4 o'clock on the 30th. That would give the committee, the way I have it laid out right now, looking at doing interviews tentatively in February at this building committee meeting, which would happen to fall on the 18th, if nothing changes within the schedule for this committee.
Don't we have to move the January meeting, Mark?
Yeah, so it's well, we're not talking about the January meeting, we're talking about the February meeting.
February.
But we do have to, we'll get to that point.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. The
January meeting got moved to the 22nd,
correct,
which is Wednesday.
right. So we would be still, I think. Why do I have, I think we moved February's to the next week.
Yeah, it's the 25th.
Yeah, the 25th, because of the President's Day holiday. So in that case, we moved it to the 25th.
If there's potential to maybe do a special meeting in February, potentially, because more than likely, I would imagine that the February 25th meeting, and again, this will have to be coordinated to Downs, would be probably the first presentation of the GMP for a March 1st state start. So that would be something that would have to be reviewed by this committee for approval, right? And then
All right, let's
I'll put a little bit more on paper, but right now this schedule works regardless of when the meetings would be. If we had to schedule a special meeting just to do the CM interviews, I don't know about you, but I don't.
well, we're not gonna get them, it's gonna take 10 days to 2 weeks to get the ratings done.
Yeah.
And then, so that
Yeah.
puts us the middle of the month already.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, maybe that time frame works out perfectly.
Yeah, and then we'll have to meet just to, I'd say we'll do a special.
Yeah, to
Just as.
ratings.
Yeah, to do the finalists,
Sure.
and see who's gonna interview and then schedule the interviews.
Okay.
Does that make sense, everybody? No way.
Sorry.
We'll do in February, I'll do a special online to talk about the finalists
25th.
prior to the 25th.
Okay.
And so we'll figure it out and we'll figure out who we're gonna interview, and go from there. All right,
Yeah. The only-
who or what, yeah.
Of course, check out
Who-
times for this walkthrough, but that's right in the middle of dismissal. At
What, 3:45?
Yeah, and it's limited parking too. Anytime after 3:50, teachers leave.
Well,
The building.
I'll adjust it probably. I don't think 5 minutes will make that.
Well, the teachers will still be there, it's just it's limited parking.
Right.
Pickup and such.
Yeah, I mean, the only problem with 4 is it gets dark and then. By the time, yeah, I'll rework it. I don't want to be there for dismissal time. The reality is that. You know,
It is what it is.
a CM bidding on this, since it's a new building, really isn't gonna be. Shouldn't be all that concerned where the existing building is on the site, but. And it's non-mandatory as well, so, I don't.
Yeah, no, I just know that time.
When would those walkthroughs be in January?
Yeah, on the 9th. And again, that date can fluctuate. I was hoping to try and do it while school was still on school break, didn't. I gotta look at the calendar again. I think there's another holiday somewhere in there that I might be able to tap into to try and do it on a holiday day or a peak.
Yeah, that's okay.
21st.
Yeah.
There's a half.
There could be a couple of half days because there's.
That's.
Aren't there, student teacher, parent teacher conferences?
That's in March.
Oh, that's in March again.
Well, it'll be coordinated so that there's no issue.
Yeah, 20th is
And
MLK.
the plan for me is to try and have a draft copy out to the building committee members by Friday of this week, so that you guys can at least do an internal review on it. If there's anything that you want. I mean, it's undergone some changes since the last one that we issued, and the only thing that we've really added is clarifications and more scope items for the CM with regards to just changes with the state and just items that internally we've identified as being valuable for towns to purchase from construction manager. The only thing that'll be slightly different with regards to this solicitation versus the previous one, because the design is already started and the schematic design will be completed while this is still out to bid, more than likely the estimate that we'll rely on will be from the architect, and there will be a CM reconciliation on schematic designs. However, because the drawings are just schematic, the value that you're really getting out of a schematic design estimate, when, don't forget, we just estimated these jobs again with an independent estimator about 2 or 3 months ago, whereas when we started Stanton Greenville, that effort hadn't been done. So I don't anticipate it being a huge problem. In fact, there might be some savings because we're not fully engaging a CM for the schematic design for none of these projects. And part of the reason that I'm saying that is I've now worked with DRA and our estimator through an entire cycle of 2 projects, and having a level of comfort with their estimator, is helping the cause.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding that issue? Here, I don't hear anything. Okay. So there's just one other matter, if you want to, regarding the demographics.
Oh, yeah, so basically the state had requested all that information that I started touching on in the first, during the project updates. In order to fulfill the requirements and make the priority list this year, we kind of had to act quickly to get all the information updated. They actually only gave us 15 days to redo the grant applications to be included within the cycle.
And I started getting phone calls.
And then when Mark gets phone calls, I get phone calls. So, you know, we we were able to turn around the effort for the grant application. We had a few meetings with some of the local delegation here,
Yep.
DAS, got all the.
Representative Wilson,
got all-
and we met with, just to get some clarification with them, to talk about the project, where we stood, and then, later on with DAS.
And because there were so many major changes from the original iteration, you know, the enrollment changed, the values of projects changed, the size of the teachers' middle school changed. There were quite a few changes that took place, and, you know, because the state requires these funding authorization letters. When a town or city bundles a major school construction program into one referendum or pool of money, it's not directly how the statutes are written. They want everything to be more or less a separate funding authorization for each project. So because we did it as a 6-school program, it complicated things a little bit, because the state wants to see
The individual
funding
costs.
authorizations on an individual basis, because the voters of Norwich voted for one big pool of money. Now they want to see how the funding authorizations play out based on that pool of money. And because we had issued a funding authorization letter prior to the Stanton and Greenville project, they already had an authorization letter that had the data and the estimate data already laid out for them. So when we went to, you know, then give them the new funding authorization letter, in order to make the amounts work, the new values had to be disclosed. We were already above the new values, and what could have been done, in my mind, but again, I'm not the state, we could have moved all the way through the projects and done an adjustment to the grants after the fact. The state didn't want to see it that way, so that required us to update all of the estimates. And then, because we were updating all the estimates supported a lower enrollment. So then how did we get to the lower enrollment? So then the state required us to do a demographic update. The numbers didn't change in any way. All that changed was the distribution. And basically we inserted a table with the projections within 8 years at Greenville, Stanton, Uncas, and Moriarty, and provided that to the state, and then ultimately they accepted it. In order to do those breakouts, the demographer needed a little bit of extra money. I think his proposal, off the top of my head, included like,
It was part of CSG's.
I think it was 6
Remember the-
6 hours of time was what the additional fee ended up amounting to. You know, there were meetings, you know, I spoke to him on the phone, we were working back and forth to try and get him the information that the state had given us, and then there was some review time. But, you know, it was a cost that was necessary in order to support this. Had they not been willing and able to do it as quickly as they can, we might be having a different conversation than we are tonight.
Yeah.
So, you know, not,
All in all, it worked out.
yeah, and it was necessary. I wouldn't have expended those funds had we not absolutely needed to, in order to get on the priority list. And, you know, when we're looking at escalation at the value that it is on on these large projects, you know.
It was, I will tell you that certainly when we first had a conversation with DAS, I was a little concerned, because they, and I think I mentioned this last month, was that they seemed to, you know, want to push us to postpone the next 2-3 years. So, yeah. So, and that was, you know, that was a non-starter for me personally. So particularly with the cost escalation. So, but we managed, like I said, to get stuff done, but they had actually reached out to Senator Austin, and of course she immediately called me, and it was, you know, and so we had to, you know, massage some people, let's just say, and try to, you know, and get it, yeah, that's it, and get everything straightened out. So also, Representative Wilson, Kevin Ryan and Senator Austin, they will be putting in for the 80% reimbursement on schools 3 and 4. I'm not sure if they're gonna do teachers yet or not, but they're certainly gonna do that. And hopefully that'll happen and once that, if and when that gets locked in, in this legislative session, we'll find out.
Are they gonna
Well, it
pursue?
makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
we're presenting them, we're building smaller schools for
Yeah.
less students. Why is it costing the same amount of initial
Well, yeah,
money?
also I'll mention that we will have to, I do want to put in for a space waiver and stuff too, because we do have some extra square footage in these projects, so.
Space waiver for all.
Probably,
yeah.
yeah. So roughly about 5,000 square feet.
Slightly more at Greenville, slightly more at Uncas and Moriarty prior to going into design, just. I just don't like surprises.
All right,
with-
let's, as soon as we got, I know, I'm sure we have numbers for Greenville and Stanton.
Yeah.
Let's get those together. And I'd mentioned it to Senator Austin last time I talked to her, but we'll get those numbers at least in. Obviously, we'll wait on Stanton.
Actually, you know what, I think.
I mean, Uncas and Moriarty.
Typically, what you would ask for is just a waiver of the space.
Yes, I just want to be able to
Yeah.
have the numbers reimbursed.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually, you are,
Reimbursement.
I'm thinking outside facing.
All right.
Forget, you're basically spot on. Sorry. My
Close enough,
apologies, yeah.
close, give or take a few hundred feet, All right. Is there anything else that needs to be brought before the committee?
Are we gonna talk about the MP planning group with their logistics plan or?
Good question.
I can present the item, and this ties into the logistics of the opening of the buildings. Obviously going from 7 schools down to 4. The enrollment's gonna need to be looked at within the city to figure out who's gonna go to which attendant or which school ultimately when this whole program.
Equity distribution too,
Well, yes.
because that was one of the purposes of to maintain equity throughout the entire district.
Right, but yeah, so that'll have to be looked at by them. They had provided a cost to do the 4 elementary schools for $45,000. Now, if the Norwich Public Schools desires to pursue optional middle school redistricting, which may be favorable to the district, it would be an additional 16,000 to do that. So then essentially what would happen would be they would analyze
16,000.
all of the district lines. And the only reason that I bring up that it may be worthwhile, and this is something that administration will have to discuss. We're talking about an increased enrollment in Kelly to support a smaller school at teachers. So it may be worthwhile to include the middle school redistricting as well. And without knowing the demographics of Norwich and how simply the lines work, whether or not you're a Kelly student or a
Well,
teacher.
it's only 2 schools to worry about. It's a lot easier than
Yeah.
the 4
So
schools.
let me just say that we are working on that right now. I don't think we'll need Mike's organization or his company to do that.
Oh.
Right now, we're gonna keep it at about 450 students for global, 660 for Kelly. And I think it was Mark that was saying that between the 2 of them, we already have come up with a plan. And we will be talking to the Board of Ed, and we will be, I just drafted a letter just now to families where we might we'll begin this next year to save cost on transportations and already start the redistricting with 6th grade only. So I don't think we'll need Mike to do that. I think we're all set with it.
Great,
All right.
thanks, Susan.
So we just got to worry about pre-K through 5 then.
That's correct.
$45,000 figure pays for that. That comes out of this budget or the school?
That's a good question. Personally,
Is the Board of Ed offering?
I think
I
that's
mean,
that's something we can discuss. I think, it's a project related.
we have to go like this to the city council, so.
It wouldn't be reimbursable, I don't think, but, it's a cost that's certainly related to the project, so. It could be included in the budget.
So
I don't know, any
also,
type of
uh,
grant out there.
Go ahead, Susan.
so Mark, also, we do have to discuss, we do know that it's not reimbursable to have, and I know is Matt Brown on here? Yeah. We have talked about what we can do for an outdoor shed-like,
Yeah.
or to keep snow blowers or lawn equipment. So that's something that we have to discuss too. I know that we talked about that with Jim, and he's going to give us some recommendations on where we could put it based on each school. So that's something else that we need to talk about.
Okay.
It may be worthwhile also, I haven't really gotten down to this path, but there may be, could there be a potential to build a maintenance area at Huntington when it's converted to central office space? I know that there would be a little bit of a gap for the maintenance equipment. The other option.
Yeah, I think that's, they need something on
I
site.
was gonna say they're gonna need
Yeah,
that.
they need stuff on site.
The other option that could work well that we've done in the past is, leaving a pad as part of the project or a gravel area for a shed to go and purchasing the shed outside of the GMP, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it would, like I said, it wouldn't be reimbursable
Yeah.
anyway. It's gonna all depend. I mean, if we got the budget for it, then yeah, but let's take a look at that at the time. But I think that's actually a good idea. Obviously, I mean, there's gonna be some pads involved, so I know we're gonna, like Greenville's gonna, I think in the logistics plan, I think there's 3 pads. For Greenville, for instance. I don't know about Stanton, but gotta be at least 2, I would think.
And potentially those would have to be powered too, being is the.
Yeah, that's another
the
thing.
switch from gasoline powered lawn equipment to electric powered.
Yeah, it probably need to be building adjacent or pretty close to it.
Jim, you were going to recommend some areas where it would be best suited to put these pads, correct?
Yes, Susan, our landscape architect will identify potential zones.
I mean,
How big, Matt, do you have any idea how big you would want an outbuilding?
That all really depends on which course we take with our maintenance department. Right now, we're hoping to get a landscaping crew, and that crew would have a truck to plow with. We need to replace a maintainer's truck. We could use his old truck as a yard truck. So if we did that, then we could essentially just rely on our fleet of trucks instead of, most of the schools use tractors. And that's where the big storage issue would come with, is storing the tractors. So if we moved away from tractors, moved towards trucks, then that's where that idea of like a yard in the back of Huntington would come in, a place where we could park them, having them secured behind fencing. So, I mean, I think it's a much larger discussion to kind of see which direction we want to take the maintenance department in.
And we've also been in discussions with the city manager on how we could maybe collaborate on some of this work. So we've discussed that as well.
All right, involving Public Works, I assume?
Correct.
Okay, good. I know that's something, I mean, we've, from our own end in the city, I mean, we've combined different parts of the organization now, so people that were doing the same tasks, so. All right, sounds like we got a concept. So once we have a better idea, then let's bring this back up. As far as, once we have a better idea for needs and stuff. All right? Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Anything else for the committee? Bunch of stuff I gotta sign probably. I was gonna swear. Hang on. Stop. Okay, motion to adjourn would be in order. Great.
I'll second, Cindy.
Second by Cindy. All in favor? Sheila,
Yes.
Cindy.
Yes.
All right, Greg.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Greg. Yes. Myself, yes. We are stand adjourned at 7:51 PM. Thank you, everyone, and I want to